Hello, welcome to Fathoms Deep, a Black Sales podcast. I'm Daphne Olive. Liz cannot be here tonight because she's really busy finishing up her beautiful novel, which is about to be released. Actually, by the time this episode drops, her novel will be available and you can order it on her website. But I am here with Nina Jack, one of the producers of Black Sales. Welcome, Nina.
Hello. Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
It's so great to have you here. I'm going to start our conversation by asking, what was your job? You said that you've worked on season 4 of Black Sales, and tell me a little bit about what your job was there.
So I was really so fortunate to come in on season 4. I'm only sorry I wasn't there for seasons 1, 2, and 3. So my job is something that's not usual on a lot of shows. So what I do is I am an on-set non-writing creative producer, which is a really long, fancy way of saying that I'm somebody that is a representative of our showrunners and creators' vision in the production when they can't be there, to help team up with the directors, the cast, the departments, the other producers that are there on the ground, which, on a show that's the size and scale of Black Sales, and there's so much happening that I was just really lucky that they were able to bring an additional producer on season 4 to help with production. There already is a phenomenal producing team on the ground there, Chris Symes and Nina Haynes, who truly run the ships. They are at the helm of the end of the show of this massive production, and they are focused so heavily on so much of the prep work involved in everything that happens in the episodes. And what my day-to-day experience often was really going between the 2 units that we're shooting. We usually had these 2, and it's not 2 units. You always hear there's second units. There's the main unit with the actors, and then there's a little second unit over here doing a driving shot. It's no, this was 2 units of, full crews, cast, stunts, major sets. I mean, I have never in my life, I've been doing this a long time, and I've never seen anything like this show. So just simply working with the 2 shooting crews, and then when I can, also being involved with the prep teams. At any given time, we might have 4 or 5 directors on the ground, but some are they're prepping, whether they're doing rehearsals, scouting, they're in meetings determining visual effects and props or costumes, and then the crews that are shooting. And sometimes it's 24 hours of shooting. You might have one crew that's doing night while another's doing day. Wow. So I will, my day begins with figuring out where everything is happening and where I am going to be of most use, of most help, and depending on which scenes are shooting and what's going on with prep, and often juggling, running back and forth between one set to another set to a meeting to a scout. But it's really exciting. I've never seen anything like it.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
That
so
probably
cool.
Did not answer one iota of the question.
No, that's brilliant. No, that helps me a lot because it's so interesting. There's so many people who are called producer, and it's I have learned a lot about how these things are made in the year that we've been doing Fathoms Deep. But basically, I've never really understood anything. It's all just crazy.
It's a title that is definitely gets assigned to a lot of different types of positions, and unfortunately has gotten a bad rap because you can watch a movie and see 70 producers. It's who are all these people?
That's totally true.
Oh gosh, I've become one of them. No, I mean, and we have this phenomenal writing team,
Mm-hmm.
and they of course are there are our creative producers. They're writing the show and, giving us our Bible of what we are making and putting on screen. And there are, then the producers on the ground who have to take those scripts, and it's truly breaking it down. And it's a team of hundreds, you between the assistant directors who are literally breaking down the scripts, taking every scene, typing it into a very specific computer program, mm-hmm. so that you can break out every little location and prop and costume that's needed. Then all of the individual departments, the stunts departments, the effects departments, the art department, transportation, everybody is finding out what they need to do. And the producing team really is helping to bring all of that together, and to keep the ship moving.
Right.
I usually say train moving. I'm going to keep using really bad nautical references.
Go for
since,
it.
You know.
Well, again, welcome to Fathoms Deep. We're kind of the queens of that. We've managed to use every nautical pun imaginable.
We've heard it all. Yes. So yeah, no, it was exciting. It was the biggest learning curve I've ever had. I mean, imagine, for anyone who's a fan of the show that has watched the show, I mean, and of course, if you've probably seen the behind the scenes videos. You've seen these incredible sets that have been built. Mm-hmm. You understand that, the ships actually aren't out on the water. I mean, it is, done with visual effects and green screen. There's a certain element that, but that first time driving up, the studio is alongside a highway, actually a highway. You can see the ships on the highway, which is really odd. Not great for sound, but that's okay. They make it work. They do a great job, obviously, because you're not hearing cars in the background.
No, not at all.
And you pull in, not at all, thank goodness. You pull into the studio, and the entire studio is the show. It's sort of like, if you've ever gone to visit Universal Studios or Warner Brothers, and there's all these stages and backlots, but they're all these different shows. It's like, no, this entire studio is Black Sails. There's these 4 massive stages with, you have interior sets in these stages, whether it's the interior walrus cabin, mm-hmm. or, below decks, the Philadelphia Library, there's a tank, there's just plantation interiors. Then there's, they've built this massive tank, that has one of the full ships next to it that can drive around and gimbal and move. So when you're on it, it actually feels like a real ship and everyone can move with it. There's a half ship that sits inside the tank, so you can create ship to ship action. The deep tank that you can dive into, the NASA backlot that took me 3 episodes to figure out how to get around because it was so big and get lost.
It's a proper city.
It really is. I like would ask people, I'm like, where is this? And that has a massive tank that you could drive a sloop. That was another ship. The Man of War was its own ship. So just simply learning the sets, learning the crew. Mm-hmm. I was dead when I showed up. I'm like, all right, I'm going to learn everyone. I mean, this amazing team that puts this show together. I want to know who every single person is and what they do. And after about 2 weeks, I was like, that's not going to happen.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
There's hundreds, but truly the amount of people that are coming together to do it, just learning, nautical terms, not, how things work. You actually do have to have knowledge of sailing, to work on those ships in terms of understanding, not because we're sailing them, but you're wanting to make them look like they're sailing. Right. There's a whole learning curve of visual effects. Again, we have an amazing team on the ground that is helping with that. But it's something that's just a part of my realm that I, in terms of understanding to help, and just bringing everything together helping bring everything together on set, I should say, just understanding that works on that level. I've done visual effects work, but never to that scale. There's understanding the show and Cape Town. I mean, I'd never worked outside of the country.
Wow.
Another amazing thing about this crew is the fact that you have people from all over the world coming mm-hmm. together. I mean, a large portion of the crew is from Cape Town, from South Africa. We also, other countries from Southern Africa, Zimbabwe, and Zambia or Botswana. People are coming. We have a large contingent of the crew from the UK, Scotland, Ireland, Germany, Australia, New Zealand. I mean, at any given time, there would be 3 or 4 languages being spoken on set. I was in awe every day showing up, just the world of Black Sails and the world itself,
mm-hmm.
all coming together for this show and what this show brought together as for the people on the ground making it and for the people that were watching it.
Yeah. Wow. It's funny. I've heard stories and you're telling stories and it's so hard to visualize it. I've always been amazed at how Black Sails really has just so much more continuity than most television shows. There are shows where you really can feel like, oh, this person wrote this or this person directed this. But I feel like Black Sails really held together more so than any show I've ever seen as like one piece, one work of art. And was that part of your job to like help that along, that continuity?
There's a team effort to all of it. I think that all first starts with the scripts, and of course what they're doing.
Absolutely.
It's all there on paper. But like any company, like anything that happens when it's of a large scale, you have so many people and so many things happening at the same time that if there is, one episode filming and they are very focused on that particular scene, but there might be something that is going on in that scene that affects something that happens in another episode later on that maybe, that director or those cast aren't involved in, but we need to make sure, comes through, whether it's something physical, it's like a prop we need to establish, or something with the set or lighting, or it is something with the tone of the, whatever it might be. And it's something that, obviously these are things you try and work through and prep as much as possible, because there's a prep period every director has with the episode before ever actually shooting. But there's always things that come up in production that just you either didn't have time to deal with in prep, or it just was something new. I mean, you just can only prep. You prepare for as much as you can, but there are always things that are going to come up, questions that will happen. And whether it be something like, hey, should this character have a gun or a sword, or hat on or hat off, or how these extras, what is the mood of everyone on the ship right now? We just came off of this. And so, to help answer those questions was a lot of what I would do, to be someone there on the set that the various departments or the director or the cast could hopefully feel comfortable going to ask those kind of questions or get feedback. And not that I necessarily always knew the answer. I mean, I more than once definitely was making a call back to LA, say, hey, what do you think about this? Or we have this idea, or what, and with a 10-hour time difference, I'm sure I woke up. Sorry, John, Dan, and Robert, if you guys are listening right now, for the amount of times I woke you up. There is a continuity, largely in part because of the team on the ground that's been with the show all through the show. So they know. I mean, there's just so, they're so hyper aware of what the details are that make the show, that what the characters, what makes the characters, what makes the sets, everything that makes Black Sails, they're all so aware of it. And sometimes it's a matter of making sure I just don't get in the way of everyone doing their job. But yes, if there are questions that were to come up, or just because things happen so fast every day, there's just so much going on every day, that just being able to be there and be someone that can help be a connective tissue through it all. I would never in a million years take any sort of credit for a continuity through the show. That really does start with the script, and that starts with, the devotion the cast has to their characters and to the team on the ground and how they put it all together. But there, it's just when there is so much going on, I think there's another layer that hopefully I brought to it to help bring that all together.
Well, and season 4 was a very important season. Do you have a favorite part of it that to make, like a favorite part to shoot, or more than one favorite part, a few favorite parts?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. First, I just have to say, yes, Tom Hopper's arms really are that big.
I know, right?
Tom, if you're listening, I will.
No. I sat next to that man, and he is giant and adorable and giant.
It's funny because I meant to say it when that shock of like the first couple of weeks being there, where I don't think I talked. I think I sat in meetings and went on scouts and just sort of, I thought, oh my gosh, people are going to think I can't talk, because I just was just absorbed. I'm like, I'm going to be the sponge, just absorb all of this. It was, all these things that, learning that, they're never on the water with a ship. And this is always, and then when I first met Tom, I'm like, wow, and that is exactly who you are. There is nothing being done in post or costumes or makeup. It was awesome.
No, he's giant. Wait, do you want to hear a funny story?
I do.
I think we've exposed this already in Fathoms Deep, but I'm going to leave it in. So at New York Comic Con, I was sitting, I mean, I met all of them at New York Comic Con, but it just happened that Liz couldn't come to New York Comic Con. And anyone who's listened to Fathoms Deep, and I have told Tom, even though I'm not sure if he listens, but he's been on, but Liz really, really, really likes Billy a lot. Well, did like Billy a lot, I guess.
Yeah.
So there was a point where I was sitting, so she couldn't come and she was really sad not to meet everyone. And there was a point where I was sitting next to Tom during the round table. So I was supposed to be, being very serious, quasi press person, whatever it is that I am.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I'm sitting next to Tom, and Liz texts me back. She's like, touch his arm for me. I was like,
that's amazing.
Didn't do that. I did not do that.
That's amazing.
They are giant.
Wow.
So we've talked about Tom, but you still have to tell me which parts were your favorite to play.
Okay. So I love them all. I miss them. I miss everyone dearly. So I would say, well, Treasure Island. I mean, oh my gosh, that experience. I was so fortunate that the full 2 weeks that we were shooting, we were up the coast. I'm sure you've already heard a lot of this from others, but we were about, I guess it's like a 4 to 6 hour drive up the coast from Cape Town. So we had taken a full unit, one of our shooting crews there, to do the work for the end of episode 8, most of 9, right, I should say, and a little bit of 10. And it is not only just an absolutely stunning part of the country, and getting to do the work, the work on the river, the work in the island, that type of experience, which was just different than what we had been doing. Of course, it's like taking everyone out on summer camp. It's very, it's a whole other world. But hello, like, we're in Treasure Island. Like, that's the whole show build up. Like, it's just amazing. It's phenomenal. So but it is funny, like the first time, and I know these pictures were all over Twitter, so it's nothing new, but we had this whole like boat crew, this massive sort of marine unit, because where we had to base everyone is at the one end of the river where cars and everybody could actually park, where the trailers could park. But where we were shooting, you don't want any of that stuff. You can't, you'd see it. And plus we just couldn't get trucks and trailers down there. So we had to load everything onto boats, and they'd set up all different types of boats, shuttle boats with, seats. There was platform boats that you could build cameras onto. And there was even a boat that was dedicated just to our porta-johns. And so,
of course, right. You need those.
Well, you do. And you don't want everyone I mean, we're a big show.
Sure,
you don't want everyone squatting in the woods. So
things you don't think about.
The first morning, and it's, there's fog on the water and the sun's just coming up. And we're zooming down the Kerbooms River, and it really feels like you're entering Treasure Island. It's like very magical, and everyone's kind of looking around like, I can't believe we get to do this. This is so cool. And then you come around the bend, and in the middle of the river are 2 porta-johns sitting on a platform boat. And you go, oh yeah,
it's nothing like
glamorous film life.
Exactly. I love it.
And back to reality. But no, and things, but like, for instance, like that, the smoke that was,
I wanted to ask you about, was that natural, or you all did that?
No, we had an army, a special effects army. And this was something that had been of concern and discussion for like months, because that's such an important element to the island and to the story. And it doesn't, it exists very early in the morning, but certainly, it doesn't last naturally through the day. And how do you create that and create that look consistently, safely, and also within regulations? This is a protected area, and you can't just constantly have what might be something that you can use safely on stage or in a back lot. Might not be something that the parks, department was comfortable with us. It wasn't an area that necessarily was always, had lots of filming and, having to go through those processes. They were wonderful in the partnership of getting access to where we wanted to shoot. I mean, the amount of different areas where we were within the jungles and by lagoons and on cliff sides and by the river, and we were so many different places. And so they were amazing partners in allowing us to get to where we wanted to be for the show. But yeah, so for the smoke, they actually had to, our special effects team had their own little boats, these little like 2-person rafts, I guess. And these machines that, you know, they're very noisy. So we're earplugs and, you know, just trying to make it as comfortable as possible. And they were holding these machines and they'd run around on these boats spewing out smoke and waving it around. And, you know, you hope the wind is blowing it the way you want, because if everything is perfect, yes, it's all kind of setting and naturally blowing into the frame of camera with mist, because you're not certainly just pumping it into the camera frame, because then it looks like you're pumping smoke into the camera frame. But that doesn't happen that often. And a lot of times sometimes they're going around in the boats trying to wave it into the direction into camera, or helping to make it not so thick, because now we've put so much there we can't even see the actors, or there's not enough. Or creating mist and smoke is a nightmare. I'll just say that. It just is. It's just not something you really ever want to deal with. But
totally worth it, though. Totally worth it, because it really worked. Totally worked for me.
And they did a great job.
I'm pretty good at the whole suspension of disbelief thing, but still, I was just like, damn, that really looks real. It really, really did. And it was super spooky. So wait, was that ghost ship really there? Did you all build that on the river, or was that added?
Oh, that is all part of our phenomenal effects team, visual effects team putting that in. Now, the ship was shot back in Cape Town.
Right.
You know, it's layers.
It's amazing to me.
The rowboats. Yes, we had those.
Sure, of course.
And real people in the water,
right?
Including my husband, who wanted to be a pirate, so we made him a pirate in the water.
Was he one of the redcoats attacking, or was he one of the walrus crew getting shot?
No, he's actually. I'll give him a little shout out here, because he kindly let me depart the country for 7 months to live in Cape Town. Although he did come down, thankfully, for a few months. No, in the opening of the finale. He's one of the pirates that Flint pulls out of the water.
Wait, is he the one that gets shot? No, is he that one?
He does, but you don't see him.
Okay.
It's what we call his 3 seconds of fame, and it was fun. But no, so all of those pirates, he did a great. I was very excited, and thank you, Dan and John and everybody who let him play with us in the water.
That's so
fun. So everybody that was in the water, all of those stuntmen and extras and pirates, you know, it's not warm, and they have wetsuits on underneath and I distinctly remember when we were doing where Flint and Julie are pulling the chest out of the water, our props and set dressing team, who were in charge of always resetting the chest, and the thing was heavy, and you know, because it had to look like it was heavy as they were dragging it out, and having to reset it exactly where it needed to be in camera, and they didn't have full wetsuits on. It was cold, and they're just laughing. They were the best sports as they're just trying to, you know, take after take, get this thing to work. And they were amazing. But so the boats, so yeah, the small rowboats, the people in the water, you know, gunfire, all of that is real, but the large ships, that is put in post, but we shoot that in Cape Town on the ships, and the magic of visual effects, something I will never begin to understand. They basically say, here's what we need to shoot. You know, they tell you, and they're there, you know, with us on the ground as well. You know, they know they need the plates. They have a whole unit that goes out with helicopter and on a boat, and they shoot the plates, the background, so they can actually build these high mountainous walls to make it look like, you know, they're when you're coming into Treasure Island, you know, so they can put in the ships, and then shooting the actual elements of the ships and those people, and then of course what we have for real, and then they put it all together. There was actually, so the shot where Flint is, you know, he and his guys are up on the hill looking down into the water, and they see the walrus actually explode.
Yeah.
So that specific shot, that was a view. I want to say, I think our director, Steve Boyum, I think he had seen that in a pamphlet, you know, where we were shooting. It was like a beauty shot on the cover of a NISNA pamphlet or something. And our locations team knew where this was. It was on this hiking trail that was way down the river, further from where we were shooting any of our main work. And they said, this is where we need the plate to be. This is the perfect view, that we can use to tie in where they're coming from and to see the river. So we took a small crew. It was our DP and our operator and just a very minimal crew to go. And I said, I want to come with. They didn't really. It was one of these things. Was at the end of the day, the main unit had finished shooting, and I thought, it's a plate shot. I should go, and I didn't have to, but why not? And then I got there, and I thought, oh, now I know why everyone was warning me. Do you really want to go? It was this trail. After about a 20-minute boat ride, you got off. And it was this very skinny, steep trail that these guys are carrying their equipment. I was in awe of like how they were getting up there, and really kind of tricky. And when we finally got to the exact spot, like, oh, this is the view. It's not like, oh, it's a big dirt area. We have lots of room to spread out, and everyone can sit down on the apple boxes and set up the camera and wait for the right light. It was still part of this very skinny, singular trail that you basically, I don't know, was not even a foot wide, kind of on this edge. And we just kind of all stood there and handed things back and forth and set it up. And it was gorgeous and beautiful and such a special moment. But I also thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're all standing here, on this tiny little area getting this one shot. But that's what it took for that plate. It was special.
It was a good shot. We appreciate it.
Okay, good. I appreciate being up. It wasn't a bad thing. It was just it was interesting.
No, absolutely. It sounds like it was a struggle, and that was, that's a pretty pivotal moment in the whole storyline.
Yeah.
I mean, 409 in general. 409 just really kind of, well, I guess all of season 4 really took us places where we never expected. I mean, we expected for something to happen between Flint and Silver, but other than that, everything took us. But yeah, 409 for me was a huge surprise, kind of how it played out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's, but it's just a testament, it was a real sort of, it truly was a penultimate episode for the season, but it's just a testament to the show and how well they write it. That is so satisfying to everybody. I mean, that's a very daunting task to close a series like this, and to do it with justice and to all of the characters and the storyline, and to feel earned, and everyone did it. It really did come together. Yeah. So another set, obviously, we introduced this season was Philadelphia.
Right.
So Philadelphia, the guys knew they were bringing that into the storyline, months and months in advance of filming. I mean, this was in process before I even was hired on season 4. Wolf, our production designer, I mean, what a brilliant mind in production design, and his entire team. It's his art director, Chris Dahlberg, and his set decorator, Tom Ham, and the construction coordinator, Clive, and just everybody on the entire world. I probably shouldn't start naming names because now I'm going to forget people and feel bad, but it's just astounding what that art team has done for that show. And so Philadelphia here, is another world. They've already created England and Charleston and another one to build. And of course, it's a combination of what they're able to build as facades, interiors, and then what visual effects will add on top. All of the second layers are put in later on, because there is only so much you can build where it becomes not necessarily worth it to build. Right. It's better to put in later in post. But just the details, I remember going around when I first saw it, and between the mud roads, that you were truly, I mean, it was mud. Like I was like, oh no, I need to wear like crappy boots when we're shooting here, because it was mud, and even though it's not real snow, but the material that's used, if it's sitting out long enough, gets that sort of dirty snow look like it has.
Oh, really? Oh, that's funny. Sure, because it's mud, of course.
I mean, we're shooting it, and it's 80, 90 degrees, and and it's supposed to be winter. You're walking around, all these poor extras and our actors, they're in these heavy winter wear, and I felt terrible. I felt I'm like, I should be wearing winter clothes just like in sympathy, and then I couldn't. I couldn't do it. It was quite a challenge to make winter and to make Philadelphia in the heat of summer in Cape Town. But there were these details, like a cobbler shop that had been put in, and with shoes. At one point when Harriet is walking around with Rackham and is looking at some shoes. And those shoes actually were handmade by a local cobbler I'm like, that still exists.
I love that. I love that so much.
And they were phenomenal. Like, I want to buy these. They had little bottles of perfume and then real fish at the fish stand. And, of course, our horse-drawn carriages going around, and just all of the elements and the details that it takes to make it feel real. And of course, every single take, you're resetting all of that and telling people, in terms of, waiting for the horse and carriage to come around and go back to one. And, it takes extra time, but it was quite astounding to walk around the corner from a stage and right into Philadelphia. And then you'd walk through the back of Philadelphia and you'd walk right onto the dock where you created Havana.
Oh, really? I was going to ask you about Havana. So those were in the same space.
So where Rogers meets Grandal, that actually is a dock area that is literally right behind the Philadelphia Library. That's sort of the back end of the Nassau lot. So you'd be like, oh, it's hot in summer in Havana, and now we're cold in Philadelphia. The magic of movie making. So yeah, it was pretty phenomenal. That was another one of my favorite parts. And the Maroon Camp.
Yeah. So where was that geographic? I mean, it's funny. I mean, I do have all of these, I have a geography of the world of black sails in my head, and I know it's not real. But for me, like the Maroon Camp had to be some distance from Nassau, but it doesn't actually have to be any distance from Nassau at all. I'm aware of that.
Oh, the geography of Nassau, it definitely, I think there might have been a few liberties, but it's
yeah, time and distance. I told friends of mine who care about time and distance, Alistair Stevens, this one's for you. I just told them, I was like, just let it go. Just let
enjoy the ride.
Right, exactly. Enjoy the ride. Don't try to count days. Don't try to count distance. Just go with it.
Right. Thank you. Awesome. Sorry. Nice to meet you, Alistair. No, it's so the Maroon Camp is actually, it was built on a nearby vineyard. The area where Cape Town studios are is actually out. It's about a half hour outside of Cape Town, and it's towards this area called Stellenbosch, which if you're familiar with Northern California wine country, it's sort of, if you picture San Francisco and then there's Napa and Sonoma,
sure,
that's sort of like what Stellenbosch is to Cape Town. So there's these beautiful vineyards that have just enormous amounts of property that they were able to build these sets on that would stay for 2 seasons.
That's amazing.
The Barlow farmhouse was on a piece of property like that was almost across the street from the studios. And the plantation, which was new to season 4, that was in another vineyard. And that was, it's amazing. You'd walk on there and you'd be like, oh, I guess the windmill was already there. And, they built around. It's like, no, the windmill, the barn, the stables, everything that was all built. So the Maroon Camp, the first time, at this point now, the whole crew, the cast, everybody's used to it, because obviously it played very heavily in season 3.
Sure.
So a lot of these things I'd show up to were very brand new to me. And it was another place, I will admit, I absolutely got lost. It's
also, there's a lot of buildings there. It's not like, I mean, okay, maybe I'm wrong and maybe half of it was CGI, but it felt like there was a lot of buildings there. Like there was a lot. Right. There are a lot of paths. There's a lot of stuff going on.
There's the drawbridge. There's, there are nooks and crannies everywhere. There's practical rooms, huts. It really was like a living, I could believe, I'm like, they should, when during the off season, they should rent it out and make some money because people could live here. It was phenomenal and gorgeous.
Yeah, really gorgeous.
It gave you pause when you be in places like that, because you have these really intense scenes that we would shoot, of course, Silver and the Queen, and there was a lot of really, that was not necessarily a set where a lot of fun, happy things going on.
Right.
But when you were there, there was a real sort of gravitas to the set and the location with, the mountains behind and, the way the light would come in. And it just, it's like being in a theater. It actually added that much more. And you just, realized just how special it was to be there and be a part of it. Yeah, and I think another favorite. Okay, this isn't a favorite because this was actually awful. It was awful because it was so hard to watch and do. But I'll put it in the category of favorites just because it was such a unique experience to see. Was the whole keel hauling sequence. I mean, from the moment you read it for the first time till the last second of shooting it, absolutely one of the most difficult sequences, both physically and emotionally. I mean, it's brutal. Roel Ryan came in as he was the director for episode 3 and just had these really fantastic ideas of how to shoot the keel hauling, differently all 3 times to really show what was going on, not just show what's going on, but also, from the point of view of the characters. And so you could really see what was happening, and understand what's going through, what's going through Roger's mind, what's going through Rackham's mind, and it was awful. Sorry, I'm even having trouble talking about it because it was awful.
To be honest, for everyone listening, that's going to actually be very comforting because we were all so horrified. I mean, again, I understand now. Like, I had a really hard time with it, and I had to watch it a bunch of times because I was looking for stuff to talk about it. But I understand it now in the space of the story. I'll never watch it again. I mean, I rewatch Black Sails a lot and still a lot. And yeah, I allow myself now. I allow myself to look away. I know it very well. I know every look, every bit of it because I really studied it and took notes on it. But
it's amazing how complicated it because it seems like something that should be so black and white as you're watching it. Like you should, who you should be rooting for, who you should be, mad, upset with, who, and it's not. You realize just how complicated everything is as you're watching it because you just feel awful, and you are there with Rackham and understanding just the horrors of this, and the turn with Rogers they were just so good, and that what the prosthetics, the makeup team did. I mean, it was like a full body cast.
No, it's amazing, right?
That was done because you had to have all the cuts and the blood and everything put on the body. I mean, there was some visual effects enhancement, but those cuts, everything that the barnacles and the ship is doing to you as you're being keel hauled is more than what you can just do on top of someone's skin. If you're doing a prosthetic cut on top of someone's skin, they cut themselves with a knife. That's something, you can usually just build and put on top of your skin naturally. But this was so intense. It was like a costume that had to be, molded and built ahead of time. And it's just the amount of preparations. And then I think it was something like 6 hours that it took to put on Ray.
Wow.
And on his stunt double, Craig. And it was really a phenomenal effort. I mean, the actual rig of dropping him down, that is real. Just all the different pieces between what we shot on the actual Man of War, what's shot underwater, what is actually built as a visual effects shot, what's married between the stuntmen and not. I guess a part of me remembers it as being really, really just sort of awful because of what the story is, and also just because of how freaking hard it was to put together.
Right. Yes. Yes, you experienced it in a very different way than we did. It is very hard in the story, but it's so pivotal. I mean, it's so that whole episode is really about vengeance and people who wins, like who wins in these power struggles, and how vengeance basically makes you not win. And so that just becomes so important throughout the whole season, and it's so hard to watch, and it's so important.
Yes, no, absolutely.
Because when Rogers shoots him at the end, if you didn't go through all of that, if you didn't go through all of that stuff where you're so positive that Rogers was like the man in control and winning that situation, if you didn't get to the end of that where he just gives up and has to shoot him in the head.
It's not earned. It doesn't.
Right,
It doesn't.
exactly.
It's not meaningful. Absolutely.
Exactly.
And to have all of that happen in episode 3 of the
Mhm.
season. I mean, most shows take that as something they're going to build to at the end, but
Right.
that's a massive leap. That's a faith, to take your audience, to give them that weight so
Right.
early in the season, and move forward. I'm so proud of that episode, not just on a production level, but on a story level, and what those risks that were taken and put on and done, for the show and for the story, which was great.
Absolutely. I mean, that was the moment. I mean, again, I laughed at myself. I remember laughing at myself. I mean, I super laughed at myself, and all of our listeners know this, that like I made a really big deal of how excited I was to have all these scenes of Jack and Teach together. And I even said that to Toby before season 4, and I went on and on. I was like, yay, I'm getting Jack and Teach. This is what I want. And then I was like, stop saying stuff like that, because I was like, clearly just if I say I want 2 people to hang out with each other, one of them's going to die, or both of them.
Oh, so it's your fault.
Yes.
That's
yes.
what.
Yes.
Okay.
It is
All
actually.
right.
It is actually my fault. I stopped saying I liked anything after that, because I was like, if I like it, it dies. But
no, it's there's, I mean, goodness, another thing sort of along the same lines, of course, was episode 6 with with Eleanor, and wow, I mean, again, that's a type of climactic ending that is often saved for like the final episode. But episode 6 just like tore your heart out.
Yes, it did.
And what Hannah, holy crap, that woman is phenomenal. And that whole fight sequence. I mean, I know you guys have talked to her, but we were there. I was there on the day when we were shooting it, and what she and Zaythu and the stunt man, that those actions, she was doing so much of it herself. I mean, threw herself into it. They both did. And then our stunt man, he actually was on fire that whole time.
Oh shit, really? That was real fire?
That was the first time he had ever done something like that on camera. Wow. It was pretty impressive. I mean, no, not pretty. It was amazingly impressive, because talk about not only having to understand on a stunt level, a safety level, being on fire. How does that work? And what do you do if you need an out, and how, but the hardest thing is acting while you're on fire. And, it's so often you'll see in shows, someone, for whatever reason, they're on fire and their arms are flailing all over, and it just doesn't look right. And you can't blame anyone, because, oh my goodness, that's what,
sure.
He really, he kept the character going. He still played his role through all of that, and it looked so real and it was all done incredibly safely. I'm so proud of how the entire team came together for that sequence, and it really, it was so heartbreaking. And it, of course, suddenly Roger, I mean, the character of Rogers, I always say to Luke, I'm like, I'm so confused.
Right.
One moment I hate you, and now I'm like feeling sorry for you, and then I'm rooting for you. I'm like, it's not fair.
Oh, sweetie. Liz and I are on the record going through all of that stuff, and we're like, I'm going to try to not think about how much we talked about how we kind of liked him in season 3, and then we had to deal with season 4. We're like, oh, we hate him. I actually was pretty good. I mean, Luke's amazing. I mean,
absolutely
stunning. Yeah. I managed to just be angry with him. Liz went back a little bit, but that's not because Luke isn't incredible and totally deserving of the sympathy later on. I was just really, really mad.
Yeah. He threw, I mean, he should write like a book on Woodes Rogers, because he did so much research. I mean, he knows that character, he knows that person, he knows the history so well, and really embodied it. I mean, none of the characters, I mean, everybody took it as, they understood the complexities of like how you came to be these people.
Mm-hmm.
These were not caricatures. These were not, cartoon, these are real people. And so throughout all 4 seasons, and obviously coming to a climax in season 4 with, all of these complex feelings in terms of understanding, who you're rooting for, who you sympathize with, what it really, there was nothing that was black and white. And I really appreciated that so much about the show and about every single one of them. What Toby Stevens, with the character of Flint, I mean, my gosh, what a role.
He's just superhuman. I mean, I just don't really know any other way to describe what he did.
Well, especially with all the fight, my goodness, the poor guy, the amount of fighting. I think, I remember when I would read about the early seasons and all of those guys would go do, gym workouts all of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was around episode 4 or 5 of season 4. I remember asking our second AD, Darren, who was in charge of like basically scheduling everybody's life, and talk about a brain I am jealous of in terms of how that worked, because he put it all together. And I said, it doesn't seem like we're scheduling like workouts anymore. We couldn't, because we were working. The work was the workouts. There was so much, and I'm sure you've heard this from all of them. Season 4 just became so intense with the amount of production, the amount of shooting, and then the amount of fighting that they had to learn with the stunt team and rehearse and shoot. It's like that was the workouts.
I think Luke is still in pain. Like the last time we talked to him, he was still in pain.
Oh my gosh, Luke Arnold. Oh, my heart. That just, it goes out to that man with every, between the opening sequence. Holy cow.
And I didn't realize this didn't come out in one of our interviews, but I think he did an interview. I forget what they're called, like these friends of his who are video game podcasters. And he was talking about how actually his biggest fear was to have to be underwater. And I had never asked him about that, but they did. And he was talking about how this was like his biggest terror. And he was like, well, at least I don't have to do that. And then he found out that he had to do that.
Yeah, that was done.
It was beautiful.
It was some hard conversations to have in terms of when we had to do that again. He had the entire stunt team and underwater team and what they did to make him comfortable, to make it all work. And the amount of, so of course there's the scuba divers right off camera that always have a tank that they can come in. There's, of course he's not that far underwater, but still he's I don't recall the exact amount of feet, but he's not right at the surface, but it's all these things you can say to someone like, oh, there's going to be a diver right there. And, or you can just swim up to the top but really, I mean, he's got a prosthetic foot that's in this, there were certain things that were real, and you couldn't visual effects all of, his leg being caught. And even though the actual rope ladder, it wasn't like tied to something, but still it's putting him in a situation I could absolutely understand that. And he just did it so beautifully, multiple times. But that's the kind of sequence, that entire opening sequence of episode 1. I mean, this is amazing. Truly big feature film type shooting where, the planning, starting from, the storyboards, Lucas Etlin, obviously directing it and putting together the storyboards, and we do little like live action video with our mini ships in the office, how to show the shots and visual.
He told us about putting the mini ships and like shooting stuff with his phone. That was in our first interview with him. He told us all about that. I think we maybe made fun of him a little bit.
It's like, well, why don't we just that's how we should just do the show. iPhones and, it'd be much easier.
I think we joked about giving him like little Lego Flint and Silver to put on his little ships.
Oh. Yes. I want to say we did have little characters, but I don't think they were Legos. That would be, we should do like a webisode of just, the little
yes,
ships. And little,
yes, you should.
Would be, Well, even it's something that's even used like as a filler, like when you're editing and visual and you don't have a visual effects shot built, but you're cutting the episode together, so you might have a little iPhone video that you put.
That's fabulous. I want those iPhone videos now.
I know. I can't. Sorry.
It's okay. I know. There are many, Nina. There are many things I want that I don't get. It's okay. I say it all the time.
What it took to put that sequence together, and it is the kind of thing that there's so many elements involved, so many layers that until you are able to start putting a lot of that together, you don't see what works and what doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
That was something I really had to sort of get over when I first showed up in Cape Town, is that I came in sort of just assuming everybody already knew everything. Like
Mm-hmm.
I was the one that had to catch up. And what it took me a couple of weeks to realize is everybody knows so much. They have learned and put, what has come together in 3 seasons is phenomenal. But every script brought something new and different, a new and different challenge that still had to be figured out and worked out. And this sequence, of course, was one of them. That, and of course, the end sequence too, and the two ships coming together, and just the how what shots you need to be able to tell this, not just tell the story, but tell the story with. From the right point of view, or with with the right emotion, whatever you're trying to achieve in that scene, that's and also what you need to make sure that they have the elements to do the practical, to do to put the visual effects together, and
Mm-hmm.
to just to make sure that it all makes sense to the viewer, on a technical, on a visual and practical level. So sometimes you do everything you think is right, and then something isn't quite working, and you have to go back and get something else to help make it work. It's never, those kinds of sequences, you never want to have to go back and get anything.
Right.
But sometimes it's just a part of the process.
Well, and the first sequence you all were doing over a really long period of time. Yes, somebody told us that. I don't remember. Probably Lucas.
Yeah.
Was that
months?
Yeah, it's so amazing.
It was months. I mean, the structure, every episode took quite a bit of time. The structure is set up that, you have 10 working days that you schedule to, for all of the main, for as much as you can get in this, what we sort of, I guess you would call like the main unit. We didn't really differentiate, main and second units. Cause like I said, each unit, there was not anything either unit couldn't do. But you'd schedule that, and then you'd have things that were going to take longer, whether it was because it was a large stunt sequence that needed to be prepped and taught to the actors, or it was a set that wasn't that needed time to be built, or for whatever reason, there was always certain scenes that were just going to take more time to prepare. So those often were the ones that were set to be with the unit that was going to happen later. But what happens over the course of the season is sometimes as those scenes are scheduled to be later, now something else has to be shot in order, first, because now this is going to get blown up, and we need to shoot this, but before we need to shoot this scene out because we're going to blow this up, or just there was this big board in our assistant director's office that was, it was the master control room board that had, it actually was even like little pictures to represent the scenes and represent the sets of what we were doing that were constantly being moved around, because you had to know, okay, well, that, because our stunt team, who did just this, Franz and Daryl and the whole, and Fleur, the whole team this season every episode was just massive for them. It wasn't like, oh, this is the big stunt episode, now this one isn't, it was like, no, it was the whole season.
No, right. Every episode had something like that.
And you're often scheduling around, making sure they have time to, conceptualize what the fights are or what it is they're designing, figure it out, to teach to the stunt crew, then have the cast come in and rehearse it. There's always feedback process, making sure it's what our director and writers are expecting to see. And this can take weeks. And while they're doing that, there's only so much they can be doing at one time. So there might start to be a backlog.
Right.
Or
sure.
same thing with sets, or if you're prepping to blow up NASA,
Right.
that takes time.
We haven't even gone down that road yet. We need to talk about that.
Yeah. Part of the reason something can take a long time to shoot is not necessarily, it can just come simply down to the fact that elements you need to pick up, something that you didn't get just aren't available to you because now it's being used for this episode or the other episode. So it's, sorry, my brain's starting to hurt.
No,
this like over a year ago, this was all happening. I'm going, oh my gosh, that's right.
Fascinating. This is so much fun to listen to. I've got to say, I'm really enjoying it. Okay, let's talk about let's talk about destroying NASA. How much did you all actually destroy NASA?
They destroyed quite a bit. That was another hard one to watch because I don't know. I think a lot of the crew and the art team were actually like thrilled because it was, when they've been working on it they've been shooting there and working it for so many seasons. It's like, now finally we get to do something cool to it. I was like, no, it's NASA. I don't want to
That's
see
how
it yet.
Okay, I got to say, and I said this already in the podcast, like, I think it was Dan who did the behind the scenes one for that episode, and he looked downright giddy when he was describing what was going on. He really did. You don't have to confirm that. I just said it. That was my impression, was that Dan Schatz had a really good time.
I think everybody there had a really good time because look, give people the chance to just go blow a bunch of stuff up.
It's so true.
Of course.
Well, especially a bunch of people doing a pirate show. I mean, you got to say, you got to assume there's some part of them that's just like, we just have to blow shit up.
Oh yeah. I mean, the bridge, that we were actually going to blow the bridge up. We burnt down, they actually did burn down all of those huts, all of the, that's on the beach camp there.
Sure.
That was mostly all, if not all, practical effects. And, I'd have to remember there were times where, sometimes I'd be, over on like the tank set and need to come over to check on something because maybe there was a rehearsal, maybe there was a rehearsal happening or a test or something, and you have to be careful where you'd go because they might be pre-rigging explosives. They'd have these little signs up, it's a hot set, and you go, oh yeah, I forgot. Like you couldn't just walk around like on your phone sort of aimlessly, or just in deep conversation. You really had to watch where you went because, it could get really dangerous. But yeah, no, that was a ton of fun. I mean, the tavern, completely, that was destroyed. I mean, it was, I think everybody got to have a little hand in that.
This is my new dream now, is to like see something like this being done.
It's fun. I can't lie. It is a lot. I mean, look, it's always tense because safety is just absolutely your number one concern.
Of course.
And there is sort of this, there can be this false sense of security that because it's, you're on a film set, that everyth's going to be fine.
Oh, that's so funny. I was just thinking, this is my new dream, and I trust people like you to make sure it was safe, so I don't have to worry about it.
But it is. I mean, we do, our whole special effects team and the stunt team and of course, everyone that's prepping it. Absolutely. So because everybody has such an incredible attention to safety, that's why it is safe. When I say there can be this false sense of security, it's because things are always going so well,
right,
that you just sort of make this assumption. It's like, no, it goes so well because of the amount of time and attention and prep that goes into it. So there, everyone always has to be on the top of their game with that, but they are. And it was blowing up NASA, in the fire in the cabin of the Walrus. I mean, that was all done on a stage set, real, which
Amazing.
Was incredibly intense. So yeah, they it's definitely a good gig if you like to blow things up.
I never thought of myself as someone who wants to blow things up, and yet you're talking about it. I'm like, yeah, I would like. Well, I don't want to blow things up. I just want to watch someone else blow them up.
Maybe you have a career in the special effects department. You never
know. Seems a little late to start over.
It's never too late. There was a day in before we started shooting season 4, because we did have a new special effects team. this season, and they had set up all different types of effects for all the producers and the directors to come in and look and see what they liked, and it was like a buffet of effects. Like they were all set up at our big tank, and here's this is what cannonballs in the water are like, and here's this kind of explosion, and here's what the black smoke will look like, and here's a cannon firing, and you just kind of walked around stations. I'm like, I can't believe we get to do this. This is crazy.
That is crazy.
You're giving notes like, well, that might be a little too intense, or could we lessen this, or more here, or and just designing all of that it's pretty wild. But I'll never forget that the special effects sort of smorgasbord of what to do.
Okay, now I want to see that too. Yeah, I am in the wrong line of work. I like make jewelry. I've got tiny little torch with tiny little fire. Not the same.
And well, see, okay, to what with which also would be in your wheelhouse. Maybe what would something on the opposite end of the spectrum of creating all the special effects is these costumes.
Oh my God!
I mean, Tim and his team that our costume designer and this team of hundreds that design and build these costumes. There is a building, a stage warehouse building that is just filled pirates costumes, red coats, you name it, it's in there. They're making it. They're
Max's costumes, all of Max's costumes.
Oh my gosh, how much fun! I mean, that's well, not fun necessarily for Jessica and Hannah and to wear. Fair, I know they have the corsets and bless them. It was they're not the most comfortable pieces of clothing to wear, but I just in awe of that whole process of what they would put together. And it's not even just in thinking of the costumes and the jewelry and the wigs, it's as much about what is period correct, what is story correct.
Absolutely.
And then there's a practicality to it too, in terms of, what's happening, when with, of course, with Eleanor and, the fact that she was getting a slash on her dress or, in terms of Bonnie and how, how things can move, with her, when she's fighting and how the jacket will work. And of course, when we were designing, when they were designing and putting together Zaytu's costume, and because she grew into this sort of new role, this year, it's, becoming a leader, and, that had to reflect.
She becomes way more piratey by the end.
Yeah.
I think the costuming is incredible. Yeah, it's funny. We just had our episode talking about Max, and we had a whole conversation about the progression of her clothing and what it represented. But I think that the costumes are really incredible because they are both amazing craftsmanship, obviously, but also amazing visual storytelling. Just so subtle and so good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, between just how broken down costumes would be versus if they're newer, details of color, the fabrics, and just sort of on a different note, but within this realm, something that the show even brought to Cape Town is the costume department. It's made up of hundreds of seamstresses and costume, people who are washing and design and building and, maintaining all of these costumes. I mean, there were skill sets that were brought to, that people were learning, even in carpentry and just things that, now is helping build the film community in Cape Town, which I just thought was really an incredible thing that show was able to do. There's now there's not just there's a community there and an infrastructure for other productions to come in, with an enormous amount of local resources, both with the crew and materials that can be used. So I love, what that was doing. I mean, but yeah, the swords, the guns, things that were, some were, very specially created. I never knew there were so many options for swords till the first time I walked into that room, and the amount that were there and how what was chosen to reflect the character but also be right for the type of fighting they had to do. Right. I mean, there's just so many elements that that are thought of, with each of those pieces. It's it's overwhelming.
No, and it's true. Like, I mean, I've done, as our listeners know, many, many rewatches, and you can do rewatches where you focus on a specific character or a specific theme, but you can do rewatches where you really do just focus on stuff like that, where you just say, okay, this time I'm just looking at the sets and the art and the costumes and the swords and all of that stuff. I mean, that would be a very engaging rewatch just to do that.
Yeah, that would take. I would probably have a lot of pauses. You could freeze frame a lot.
Yes, you can.
And then you probably would find actually, I'm sure there are things you'd find that would be like, wait a second.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
No, it's the level of expertise and understanding just every little aspect about that time period, and then just, how it relates to these characters, and every set or every storyline, brought something new that you had to learn, and it never was just, ships and pirates, it was,
no,
there's so many different aspects and elements. It was exciting.
All right. So Nina, I would love to hear, I mean, just like an overview of like what a day in the production of Black Sails looks like. So
a day in the production of Black Sails, I think anyone that is on the show would say there's definitely not a typical day. And
Sure.
Thank goodness, because that could get really boring. So we have 2 units that we're shooting pretty much every day. Sometimes there might be 1 unit that's prepping, but let's take, for example, a day where 2 units are filming. And 1 unit might be starting their day at 7 a.m. on the Nassau backlot, doing the town being blown up. Another unit might be on the ships doing a big battle. And so on this same backlot, you have 2 crews shooting at the same time, which means probably pretty much every actor, every person on the crew is working. The actors will come in prior to call time to get ready in hair and makeup and costumes. The director and the cinematographer and the AD and the rest of the team is on the set, and they are determining what the first shot is going to be, and are setting it up with all of the equipment, with the lighting, if there's effects involved, or whatever the elements are that are required. They're setting it up while the cast is getting ready. Then the cast will come to set and rehearse. And when the rehearsal's done and everyone's happy, they'll shoot. And it sounds very, very simple, but I realize as I'm saying that, I'm like, yeah, there's nothing to it. That's easy. But what makes it so incredible about Black Sails is you take what I just said, but the amount of things involved in every aspect of that. The cast members getting ready is not just simply coming in, throwing on some clothes and running a comb through their hair. I mean, there is wigs, there is prosthetics. Rogers always has a scar, or Israel Hands has all the scars on his face, which, so much kudos to the entire makeup team. Louise Coles, who headed, all of the makeup and hair department and everything that they did. And Ashley, who built all our prosthetics. This is the heat of summer. And these things, they're not immune to heat and humidity.
Sure.
and having to maintain them every day in and day out, to make sure they're not melting and they're looking real. And so just even something as small as that has to be dealt with throughout the day. So putting the characters together and doing it for,
Mm-hmm.
you could have, 10, 12 cast working, between the 2 units, main cast, not to mention the hundreds of extras that now are getting ready, and they're getting costume. They're getting dirt thrown on them. They're getting wigs put on because there's period hair, there's hats or no hats.
Sure.
Or however, all those different things that have to be put together. Then someone has to tell everybody what to do. You've got an entire team of assistant directors that are helping guide where all of these extras have to go. So while the director of photography is working with his grip and his key grip and grip team and his his lighting team with his gaffer and all of the electricians to set up the shot. At the same time, the assistant directors are on the set giving direction to all of the extras. If you're shooting on the ship, every single one of those people are being told what to do. Who's gonna have guns and gonna be shooting, who's gonna be loading, who's loading the cannons, who's carrying the ammo from here, who's over here taking whatever it might be, whatever that scene calls for, they have to be told. If it is a big battle scene, at the same time, the special effects department is preparing all of the practical effects that are going to happen. But also you have the visual effects team that has to be making sure that the green screens are where they need to be. And then are we going to have wind? So there's these big wind machines that are up on top of condors. But the wind, if we do the wind, we're not going to be able to hear the actors because there's dialogue. So do we, what do we prioritize? Well, this is a wide shot. So it's more important to have wind, and we'll make sure not to have wind when we're doing the tighter shots. There's all of these conversations that are happening, to make sure this one shot or I should say setup, because there's usually 2 to 3 cameras at any given time rolling for a shot. And then, you have to allow time and space for the actors to be able to work with the director. I mean, I think one of the most challenging things of shooting on the ships, you think like, oh, it's challenging because you're not actually out on the water.
Although actually out on the water would be very challenging.
It would be impossible. For sure. I mean,
right?
it happened. I mean, to have that kind of a ship, I don't even know that exists. I think it does. Captain Andy, who's our technical advisor, would tell me that they do, because he helms them.
Oh yeah, they have actually out by us. I live in Maryland, like in the Chesapeake Bay. There are proper like old tall ships or reproductions of tall ships that actually travel around the Chesapeake Bay. And that could have been a way to go, but it never would have made it. Right. That's a fine thing to do if you want to just like experience a ship. I can't imagine trying to there's nothing about that. That's a controlled environment that you could film on.
So the funny thing is, you would think like, okay, you have this landlocked ship, like this should be easy. Elements in play, because you are trying to determine, that one direction is better because the light is best that way for lighting the ship and the characters and everybody on the ship, but it's not good for the green screen, or because that needs to be lit a different way, or we want to do the bigger battle stuff first because we've pre-rigged everything, but really we need to make sure we get the intense moments with the dialogue. So what order so there's an entire team there working through getting what they have to get. But the physical toll of actually shooting on those ships as well for everyone, because you are exposed all day, you are in the sun, they're getting wind on them or, water splashed on them. It is loud, there's just a lot your brain is processing all the time. Ship days, and I say this knowing full well that I am very fortunate that I'm not doing a lot of physical labor when I'm there, are exhausting. I mean, you go home and you're like, I feel like I did just spend a day on the high seas, because you are, and the light reflecting and even the actors trying to, they've got this intense Cape Town sun bouncing off the wood floors and or bouncing off of green screen into their eyes, and they're trying to act while all these elements are happening around them that we have to do to make it seem real. And even at that, one of our ships, as I'm sure you know, is gimbaled. So the Man of War is a stationary ship. So in order to make, there are things and tricks that we have to help make it look like it's on sea. But the full ship, the Walrus, and, that also played as many other ships, it actually does move. It does have a rocking motion. It can be driven back and forth. And you would do that often while shooting. I mean, it was quite noisy. So you had to pick and choose your moments when to do that or when to do other types of camera tricks. If it wasn't a moment where you could afford to have that kind of, to have that happening. But you ever do like one of those roller coaster rides, or you're on a treadmill or something where your body's sort of in a different kind of space, and then you get back on real land. Or, you know what? Even just being out on a boat all day and you get back on real land.
I've been out on a boat all day and getting back on land. I know what that feels like. Yeah.
It's what being on those ships were like. I mean, you'd walk off the ship to go back to your car and you just, whoa. I mean,
you do that little bit of swaying when you're walking, because you're
like, I haven't been drinking. I promise. I really haven't. I wish I was, but no, that really wasn't rum in there.
I've got to say, you have cured me of my urge to now like be part of anything like that. No. I still want to see it. Don't want to be part of it.
I mean, for me, and I think a lot of people would say this, it was absolutely, I think, the hardest production I've ever been a part of, both physically and mentally, just because of the amount that was constantly going on, what you had to keep, whether it was just what you had to keep track of script wise, the amount, we were at any given time, you might have 5 or 6 scripts in play. Most TV shows, when they're shooting, you're prepping one episode while you're shooting another. And then when the episode you were just prepping starts shooting, another episode starts prepping, but it's a leapfrog effect. So in reality, you'd never really have more than 2 actual episodes in play at any given time. If you have advance notice of something coming up that's a big deal, you'll know about that and be able to prep. But really, you have 2, maybe 3 episodes in play. On Black Sails, it was like you always had 5, 6, 7 episodes in play, because just of the amount that had to be shot to complete so many of these sequences, it would just take that kind of time. And so it was like having a 10-hour long movie in your head for 7 months, for everyone, and understanding what of that 10-hour film to pull out at that moment, to work with at that very moment, but also not ever losing sight of the big picture where that moment plays within the scheme of this entire show. But even though it's as challenging and as hard as it was to work and make the show, to be that far away from home, for those that were, I mean, goodness, even for everyone that lives in Cape Town, they were essentially almost on location because they were working so much. The rewards of seeing, what we did on screen for the audience, for fans, to see them happy with the episodes, the episodes are just truly, each one is an astounding piece of work. And also just the experience that we were able to have there. I mean, it greatly saddens me to know that to not be a part of that team anymore. I can't even imagine, for everybody that was a part of it for all 4 seasons. I mean, just kudos to all of them. And when I do get to see some of them, the ones that are here in Los Angeles, I know what I have been on shows that have run for many seasons, and it's so hard to leave that family. And this one, I so desperately wanted another year, like some, just because I'm like, I finally just got to know everybody all together, and I miss, they're just amazing, and I miss them. But just so grateful to have had the experience to get to know everyone and to, help put something like that together. I mean, it's just, you're just a small part of this massive world, but it's amazing.
But to be part of something so beautiful, so incredibly beautiful.
I actually find those kinds of productions, they're just really exciting. They're so rewarding. Not, you go at the end of every day, you're like, wow, that just happened. And even the scenes, I mean, one of my favorite scenes, there's so many. Eleanor and Flint in the cell in 405.
Goodness, that's so beautiful.
And there's so much going, and that's obviously one of the simplest, but it's so poignant, and those types of scenes as well, watch it's you become so engaged even when you're on the set watching them, and just getting to let those actors, just play in that space, just have that theater and bring the words to life is really, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. I mean, and to see them at the end when they had also inhabited these characters so beautifully.
Yeah. And then how much fun they all have too.
Well, there's that too. I know. I keep hearing that Toby Stephens is really funny. I'm amused. We're all amused. I think all the fans are amused by this. Everyone tells us this.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, truly, I think probably prior to season 4, there was probably a lot more practical jokes and laughter and that sort of. Season 4 was tough on everyone. The types of storylines that were being played out and just the physical nature of just how draining it was, and it was hard on everyone. You could tell it was, and just it's season 4, and
right.
they're all spending this much time away from home, and it was a challenge. But wow, everyone just really no quit. Everyone just came together.
It was beautiful. Wow. Nina, thank you so much for coming on Fathoms Deep. This was super, super fun. I love hearing stuff about how my favorite show was made.
Seriously, thank you. It's been a great trip to go back down memory lane and revisit this incredible show with and with someone who's such a fan.
Thank you so much. All right, sweetie. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Deep is a Common Room Radio production. For more information and access to other programs, please visit us at commonroomradio.com. To show your support, pledges of as little as $1 a month can be made to patreon.com/commonroomradio. Join the conversation by using the hashtag #Fathoms and follow us on Twitter at BlackSalesCast. We ask that you keep your tweets respectful and positive, and please avoid spoilers. If you have more to say, we want to hear it in all its spoiler glory. Email us at podcast@commonroomradio.com with Fathoms Deep in the subject line. Thanks for listening.